Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation in Spain. Day 64 of the crisis. That's right, day 64. Now for some of you, you are going to go into phase 1 on Monday. Some of you are going to go into phase 2. Some of us here in Madrid, for example, are going to stay in phase 0 or phase 0.5 as they like to call it. So it's going to be an interesting week for some with some changes. Now, thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. There was lots of comments, lots of debate happening. However, I will say that we need to ease up a little bit on the abuse. There's been a lot of people calling each other idiots, imbeciles. Let's try and get that out of the community. If you haven't got something constructive to say, just don't comment. And let's try to stop the abuse, please. Now, a big thanks to all of the people that decided to support the channel through a small donation. You can see your names there. A big thanks to people that bought t-shirts and mugs from the merchandise shop. Many thanks for that. And a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon. Welcome aboard on that platform. Now, let's have a look at some of the news that has caught my attention over the last few days. And as I said before, for many people, you are now going into phase 1. And as we can see here, who goes to phase 1 in the de-escalation? And we can see that Granada, Malaga, Toledo, Albacete, Ciudad Real, in addition to the entire Valencian community, and in total 32 million Spaniards will be in this stage next Monday, May the 18th. So lots of people now moving into phase 1, and as I said, some people moving into phase 2, so that's going to be interesting there as well. Now let's have a look at the map and see which phase each province finds itself in. So as we can see here, the different colors for the different phases: orange, red, green, yellow, purple, and blue. And you can get an idea of where your area is and which phase you are in. So for example, here in Madrid where I am, it is purple. So that is phase 0 preparation, they are calling it. The majority of the country is red, which is the initial phase 1 stage. Lots of places still orange there in Castilla y León and in Catalonia. That's the phase 0 stroke phase 1 area. So there's some places there that are in phase 1 and some places that are in phase 0 still. And as we can see here, the phase 1 stroke 2 area in blue, and that is the islands around Spain, Canary Islands and Balearic Islands. The majority in phase 1, but islands like Gomera, for example, are now going into phase 2 on Monday. So good times ahead for them. Now, one of the newspapers in Malaga put out some tips to pass the phase responsibly, and they said that the main novelty of the phase change is that they will not be able to control our behavior so easily, but that the good progress depends more than ever on the citizens. Because as we know, if the situation in phase 1 starts to get worse, the government will revert to one of the previous phases. So you need to keep those things in mind when you go into phase 1 on Monday. But again, it's just basic common sense. Now, Pedro Sánchez also mentioned yesterday that he is going to seek an extension to the state of alarm for another month. And as we can see here, he has proposed the extension for at least 1 month and applicable by territory. He says that it will be the last extension and he will give more power to the autonomous communities. Now remember that that's one of the biggest things that changed during this crisis, that the autonomous communities here in Spain had their power removed. They had their power over health removed. And the next extension he's going to ask for will give more power back to the regions. So the autonomous communities here in Spain will be able to again take up some of those powers that they lost when the state of alarm was announced mid-March. Now, the Prime Minister also said yesterday that without confinement, 300,000 Spaniards would have died, therefore justifying the strict nature of the lockdown here in Spain. But then again, it could be argued that if they had acted sooner, we wouldn't have as many deaths as we have at the moment. So that most likely will be the debate over the next few days. Now, as we saw on the map before, Madrid is not going to phase 1 on Monday, and the political stoush between the regional government here in Madrid and the central government continues. And as we can see here, Ayuso, the president of Madrid, blames Sánchez's decision that Madrid not change phase due to an ideological shock. The Madrid president assures that the government holds us hostage, gagged, and with a cut of our liberties. So similar words there from the Madrid president to what we heard the people in Barrio Salamanca complaining about the other day, as the press has called them the privileged 1%, complaining about a loss to their freedoms. So a little bit strange that some of the main protests here in Madrid, at least, are coming from the upper class neighborhoods and not from some of the more working class neighborhoods yet, where this crisis is obviously going to have a harder impact in the long run. Now, some good news for shoppers that are looking to get a bargain over the next couple of months. The government has rectified and will allow sales from Monday throughout Spain as long as they do not generate crowds. Now, remember I said the other day that the government was going to ban all sales except for the ones online. Well, they've done a turnaround and now they're going to permit them again, provided the shops have the necessary requirements in place and there are no agglomerations of people. So obviously the government here buckling under pressure from the retail lobby and deciding to allow the annual sales, which are a big event here in Spain. Now, with many areas going into phase one, it also means that we're going to have to start getting things done that we couldn't do during the lockdown. For example, getting the MOT or the ITV as they call it here in Spain for our car. And we can see here that the government has announced an extended extension for cars with expired ITV during the alarm. The government issues an order that establishes a staggered schedule with new deadlines. And we can see here that starting next Monday, this 1 month extension is extended by 15 more calendar days for each week elapsed between the start of the alarm state and the expiration date of the ITV. As an example, those expired between March the 14th and March 20th will have an extension of 1 month and an additional 15 days from the end of the alarm. Those from March 21 to 27 will have 1 month and 2 periods of 15 days and so on. And we can see here in a graph the new periods to pass the ITV. And we can see here that if your ITV expired on a certain date, you have an extension date here as well. So for example, the 14th to the 20th of March, you have until the 7th of the 7th. And for example, if your ITV expires this week, the 16th to the 22nd of May, you have until the 19th of November to get it done. So there we go. If your ITV did expire during the state of alarm, you have plenty of months to get it done. And the government obviously doing this because of the huge backlog of vehicles that are going to be queuing up at the ITV centres all over Spain in the next few months. So those are the dates that you have to get your ITV passed. Now, another piece of news that caught my attention, and again, something that I don't understand, and it is the lack of workers in the country of unemployment, problems hiring in the field, hospitals, and transportation of people. The crisis has unbalanced the labour market with 8 million unemployed workers. Sectors such as the countryside, the healthcare industry, and the transportation of people have difficulties in recruiting staff. So again, one of the enigmas of the labour market here, 8 million people currently unemployed, yet there are still sectors that just can't get people to work in them, something that I can't understand, to tell you the truth. If you've got a more learned opinion on the topic of labour markets and why this happens, leave it in the comment section below. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from the last video. Now the first one here from Trina, she says that she went to the dentist yesterday for some x-rays. When I checked out, there was a COVID-19 fee of $10 added to my bill, justified as costs incurred from additional sanitizing. Now we have the COVID-19 tax. Yeah, Trina, I suppose this is one of the ways that businesses are going to be able to pass this tax onto the consumer. For example, if they have to put in extra sanitary measures, dentists, of course, and retail outlets that have had to spend a lot of money in order to get their premises up to date on the new regulations regarding social distancing and things along those lines. Trina, I don't know which country you're in because you said here you paid in dollars, so you could be in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the States. So I don't know where you are and where you had to pay this fee, but I imagine that lots of businesses are going to start to do something similar from now on. One here from Timothy, he says, Hola Stuart, ¿qué tal? Thanks for your videos. We live in Barcelona and we watch every update. We were wondering if you had any idea of what phase 0.5 will entail. Also, what are your thoughts on being able to travel within the EU this summer? Thanks again. Keep up the good work. Yeah, good question, Timothy. 0.5 phase, basically you can't really do anything. From what I can understand, it mainly applies to businesses that now are going to be open without the restrictions that they had before. So for example, here in Madrid, you don't have to make an appointment to go to certain businesses to buy clothes, for example, something that you had to do last week. You're going to have to make an appointment to go to the mechanic because you always have to make an appointment for those type of services. But other retail outlets will be allowed to open without the appointment system. But that's about it. There's no social gatherings. You're not going to be able to go to an outdoor seating area at a bar because it's not going to be allowed to open. We're going to have to wait for phase 1 for that. And about being able to travel in the EU this summer, I think that it's going to open. I'm not sure when. We saw the other day that some countries have imposed the quarantine laws now, Spain in particular, France and other countries around Europe. And I'm hoping that people will be able to travel throughout the EU. But again, it's just the hope. For example, I'm hoping that the border with Portugal opens up as soon as possible. One here from Misha. Hi Stuart, I'm a big fan of your videos. Thanks for keeping us informed. I live in Switzerland but recently bought an apartment in Marbella. I'm wondering if you know if homeowners are allowed to travel there. Me and my husband were hoping to drive down with our dog and stay all summer. Switzerland is opening borders to France on June 14th for tourists as well. Do you reckon we'll be able to enter Spain and reach our home by then? We won't mind the quarantine as we expect to stay for 3 months. Any idea if possible and if some self-verification is needed? Thanks. Yeah, Misha, good question. Not sure when the borders are going to open again. At the moment, nobody's allowed to come into Spain unless you are a resident or a citizen of the country. People that have second homes here in Spain and are not residents are not allowed to come into the country. And I think the 14th of June is going to be too soon, considering that here in Spain, we're not even allowed to travel to other areas at the moment. And we're going to have to wait until phase 2 or phase 3 until that happens. And remember that different areas are going through different phases at different times. And that also complicates the matter quite a bit. One here from Hurst, they say, holiday in your own country and spend your money in your own country. This will help boost your local communities and stop your fellow countrymen or women going bankrupt. Yeah, Hurst, good idea. Unfortunately, Spain is a country that relies on international tourism. I don't think there's enough internal tourism to keep the sector afloat. Remember that Spain is a country that had something like 90 million plus foreign visitors last year. So I don't think there's going to be enough demand locally to sustain the system. It'll help, but again, without those 90 million plus, it's going to be tough. One here from Dave. Hi, Stuart, from another giddy living in a small village outside Burgos in Castilla y León. Can you tell me the best site for information for the de-escalation of certain areas? All I can seem to find are conflicting reports or old news. Thanks. Yeah, Dave, your situation there in Castilla y León is a little bit complicated because some areas have already moved into phase 1, some stayed in phase 0, and some more are going into phase 1 on Monday. It's a bit complicated. All I know is that all of the regional capitals in Castilla y León, so for example, Segovia City, Zamora City, Burgos City, are going to stay in phase 0, but there are health areas inside those provinces that are already in phase 1 or going into phase 1 on Monday. So it's complicated. It's going to depend where you are. There is a chance that your particular area is in a health area that's going into phase 1 on Monday. But again, to find information that's specific to you, I suggest you go to your local council website or to the Burgos government website, and hopefully there's going to be some information there for you, but a bit complicated in Castilla y León at the moment. One here from Tomas. Stuart, where do you usually take holidays here in Spain? Stay safe, Tom. Well, to be honest, Tom, I don't normally spend my holidays here in Spain. I go to Portugal, and I've been doing that for about the last 10 years. I normally spend my summer holidays in Portugal, and any free time that I have, I normally cross the border. We used to spend our holidays down in Malaga. We used to go to a place called Rincón de la Victoria, which is on the east side of Malaga, if you're familiar with the area. And it was a place that I liked, but I found the summer started to get a little bit unbearable down there with the amount of people. I just found that there were too many people going to those areas. And the place that I go to in Portugal doesn't have the same crowds, and the coastline is more open, and you feel the wind in your face, which is something that you don't feel in Malaga in August. Another one here. Hola, ¿qué tal? I'm a Taiwanese student currently staying in Cordoba. I do find the regulations hard to follow. We're in phase 1 now. It doesn't make sense at all if we can only go for a walk or run in certain hours, but at the same time we can go to a restaurant or cafes whenever. Really like your channel. Helps a lot for me to stay informed in the current situation here in Spain. Yeah, thanks for the comment. I said the other day that the rules were a little bit confusing and I particularly couldn't understand them. Good to see that you agree with me. I had one person comment that the rules for him were easy to understand and we should stop whining and go back to our country of origin if we don't like it here in Spain. But I do agree the rules are a bit complicated. And again, if you're only allowed to do exercise at a certain time of the day, but you can have a coffee or a beer whenever, it doesn't really seem to make sense to me. But then again, what do I know? One here from Douglas. Good on you, Stu. Read your comments about being totally confused about what the government is trying to achieve. I left a comment on your previous video where I said the illogical thinking of the Spanish government. I was trolled by one commentator. Thankfully, the rest were non-abusive, just thoughtful. The Spanish government, in my humble opinion, are making policy on the hoof to score political points. That has been a problem for generations. I really do love visiting Spain and interacting with the Spanish people and their culture. I feel part of them. Any troll out there can sod off. Keep these videos coming, amigo. Ciao. Yeah, Douglas, sorry that you were abused by a troll, and sorry for anybody that's been abused by a troll. Unfortunately, there are people on YouTube that think that they know more than others, and they are willing to call people idiots or imbeciles if they don't agree with them, but that's how social media works, unfortunately, and it is difficult to stop. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Everyone's entitled to say what they think, but we need to leave the abuse out of the comments. One here from Tony's. Hi Stuart, please don't give up on trying to understand the rules. Many of your viewers depend on you as a source of English language information. I've been watching your updates for the last 2 or 3 weeks here on the Costa del Sol. Yeah, Tony, no plan to stop the videos just yet. I'm planning to keep putting the videos out and give information for people that need it. I understand that there are lots of people living in Spain that don't speak Spanish fluently and can't understand every rule, and the objective is to provide information for people and help them to go about their day-to-day here in Spain and understand the current situation that we're in. And finally, one here from Dollar Bill. I live in a coast city north of Alicante, Denia. I've been seeing many terraces following social distancing rules and the atmosphere is quite good. You can continue enjoying seafront views and nature. I wouldn't discourage at all staying in your home country, but keeping in mind social distance measures are all over the world, the question may be, where do I prefer to spend this quarantine, at home or in beautiful Spain? Yeah, thanks Dollar Bill for the comment. And it is a question that a lot of people are asking themselves. Where would they prefer to be? In their home country, perhaps in the north of Europe or in the UK, or in sunny Spain in phase 1, sitting on a terrace with a few restrictions, but with good weather and a nice view. And on that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. I'll let you guys debate the situation out as you normally do, but please try to limit the abuse. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.